The late autumn wind whistled through the bare branches of maple trees lining the outskirts of Monroe, Connecticut. Daniel Walker pulled his worn leather jacket tighter around his shoulders as he drove his pickup truck along the winding back roads, heading home after another long day of teaching American literature at Monroe High School. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a sight that would have once brought him peace. But these days, everything seemed shrouded in a persistent gray, the same shade that had settled over his life since losing Sarah 3 years ago. The empty passenger seat beside him served as a constant reminder of all he'd lost. His wife's death had left a void that neither time nor his best efforts could fill, especially in his relationship with their daughter, Olivia. Once inseparable, they now moved through their days like strangers sharing the same space, their conversations reduced to mumbled good mornings and half-hearted questions about homework. Lost in these familiar thoughts, Daniel almost missed the sound a faint, desperate whimper carried on the wind. He slowed his truck, straining to hear over the rumble of the engine. There it was again, a chorus of distressed yelps that made his skin prickle. Something about those cries spoke of pure terror. Daniel pulled over, cutting the engine. The November chill bit through his clothes as he stepped out onto the gravel shoulder. The whimpering grew louder as he followed it down an embankment toward the railroad tracks that cut through the wooded area. His heart nearly stopped at what he saw. A golden retriever mother lay tied to the steel rails, her honey-colored coat dirty and matted. Around her, 3 small puppies trembled, also bound to the tracks with thick rope. The mother's eyes were wide with fear, but there was something else in them, a deep, sorrowful resignation that twisted Daniel's gut. She had stopped struggling against her bonds, as if accepting the fate that awaited her and her babies. In the distance, a low rumble grew steadily louder. The evening freight train was approaching. "Oh God!" Daniel breathed, scrambling down the rocky slope. His dress shoes slipped on loose stones as he half ran, half slid toward the tracks. The mother dog's tail gave a slight wag at his approach, hope flickering in her amber eyes. The puppies, no more than 8 weeks old, whined pitifully. Daniel's fingers trembled as he attacked the knots binding the mother. The rope was tied deliberately tight, and his numb fingers struggled to loosen the complex knots. The train's whistle pierced the air, closer now. Much closer. Come on, he muttered, finally freeing the mother dog. She immediately began nosing at her puppies, trying to help as Daniel worked to untie them. The ground beneath his feet began to vibrate with the approaching train. His heart thundered in his chest as he freed the second puppy, then the third. The train's headlight illuminated the tracks now, the beam cutting through the gathering dusk. Daniel's fingers burned as he worked at the last knot. The mother dog barked urgently, refusing to leave her final puppy. With a desperate yank, the rope finally gave way. Daniel scooped up the last puppy and threw himself clear of the tracks, rolling down the gravelly embankment with the small dog clutched to his chest. The mother and other puppies huddled against him as the train roared past, the rush of air and deafening noise washing over them like a wave. For several long moments, Daniel lay there in the dirt, heart racing, lungs burning. The puppy in his arms squirmed, licking his chin. The mother dog pressed close, her whole body trembling but her tail wagging steadily now. Slowly he sat up, checking each dog for injuries. Besides some rope burns and matted fur, they appeared physically unharmed. "Who would do this?" he whispered, scratching behind the mother's ears. She leaned into his touch, her eyes now soft with trust. The puppies tumbled around his legs, their fear already giving way to playful relief. Daniel couldn't leave them here. His house had stood empty of pets since their old cat had passed away shortly after Sarah's death. He had resisted Olivia's occasional requests for a new pet, feeling it would somehow dishonor Sarah's memory. Now, looking at these 4 souls he just saved, he knew he had to help them. "Come on," he said softly, gathering the puppies in his arms. The mother followed closely as he made his way back up to his truck. He opened the passenger door, and she immediately jumped in, watching attentively as he placed her puppies beside her. They huddled together on the seat, and Daniel couldn't help but smile at how the mother immediately began cleaning her babies, checking them over herself. The drive home was quiet except for occasional puppy whimpers and the steady thump of the mother's tail against the seat. Daniel's mind raced with questions about who could have done this, and what he would say to Olivia. His daughter had grown increasingly distant over the past year, spending more time with a new group of friends he didn't quite trust. But surely even troubled teens wouldn't do something this cruel. The lights were on when he pulled into the driveway of their colonial-style home. Olivia's bicycle lay on its side in the front yard, something that would have earned her a gentle reminder from Sarah about taking care of her things. These days, Daniel chose his battles carefully, not wanting to widen the gulf between them. He helped the dogs out of the truck, noting how the mother stayed close to his legs as they approached the house. The screen door creaked open before he could reach for it, and Olivia appeared in the doorway. Her long dark hair, so like her mother's, was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore the oversized hoodie that had become her uniform of choice lately. "You're late," she started to say, then stopped abruptly at the sight of the dogs. Her face paled slightly, and something flickered in her eyes. Was it recognition? Fear? But it was gone so quickly Daniel thought he must have imagined it. "Found them tied to the railroad tracks," he explained, ushering the dogs inside. Someone left them there to die." Olivia's hand flew to her mouth, but again, something about her reaction seemed off. That's horrible," she managed, backing away as the mother dog approached her curiously. "They need food and water," Daniel said, heading for the kitchen. "And probably a bath. Would you help me?" To his surprise, Olivia nodded quickly. "I'll get some towels," she said, disappearing upstairs. Daniel filled a large bowl with water, which the mother dog lapped at gratefully while her puppies nursed. He found some leftover chicken in the fridge and shredded it for her, his mind still turning over the events of the evening. When Olivia returned with an armload of old towels, they worked together to clean the dogs, picking debris from their fur and gently washing away the dirt. The mother dog remained patient throughout, though she kept close watch on her puppies. As Daniel worked, he noticed Olivia's hands trembling slightly, and tears falling silently down her cheeks. "Hey," he said softly, touching her shoulder. "They're safe now. We'll take care of them." Olivia nodded, wiping her eyes quickly. "What are we going to name them?" The question caught Daniel off guard. It was the first time in months Olivia had suggested doing anything together. "Well," he said carefully, "I was thinking we could call them Mother Goldie. Simple, but it suits her." A ghost of a smile crossed Olivia's face. "Mom would have liked that. She always wanted a golden retriever." The mention of Sarah hung in the air between them, but for once it didn't feel like a weight. They worked in companionable silence, naming the puppies as they dried them: Max, the largest male with a white patch on his chest; Luna, the only female with a gentle disposition like her mother; and Charlie, the smallest but most energetic of the three. It wasn't until later that night, after Olivia had gone to bed and the dogs were settled in the living room, that Daniel found the truth. He was gathering the dirty towels when a piece of paper fell from the pocket of Olivia's hoodie. His heart froze as he read the messages on the crumpled note. "Midnight at tracks. Bring rope. Teach those strays a lesson. Don't chicken out." The handwriting was a mix of styles, multiple authors. One he recognized as belonging to Jason Matthews, one of Olivia's new friends. The boy had been in Daniel's literature class last semester, showing flashes of intelligence buried under a carefully cultivated air of indifference. The other writing he didn't recognize, but the implication was clear enough. Daniel sat heavily on the bathroom floor, the note trembling in his hands. His daughter, his sweet, compassionate daughter who used to rescue injured birds and cry over sad animal movies, had been involved in this? The thought made him physically ill. What had happened to the girl who used to help Sarah volunteer at the animal shelter? Who had these new friends turned her into? But even as anger and disappointment coursed through him, Daniel forced himself to think deeper. Olivia's reaction when he brought the dogs home, her tears while cleaning them, her eagerness to help, those weren't the responses of someone truly cruel. Something else was at work here, and as much as it hurt, he needed to understand. Morning came too quickly, gray light filtering through the kitchen windows as Daniel sat at the table, nursing his third cup of coffee. He hadn't slept, spending hours watching Goldie and her puppies sleep while trying to decide how to handle this situation. The easy path would be punishment, grounding, taking away privileges, calling the parents of the other teens involved. But something told him that wouldn't address the real problem. Olivia appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school but hesitating when she saw him. Goldie immediately went to her, tail wagging, and Daniel watched as his daughter knelt to pet her, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I found the note," Daniel said quietly. Olivia's hand froze in Goldie's fur. She didn't look up, but her shoulders began to shake. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Sit down," Daniel said, pulling out a chair. "Talk to me. Please." For a moment, he thought she might run. But slowly, Olivia sank into the chair, her face crumpling. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she began, words tumbling out between sobs. "The dogs, they'd been getting into the garbage behind the diner where Jason works. His boss was angry, threatening to fire him if he couldn't stop them. We just wanted to scare them away." "By killing them?" Daniel's voice was harder than he intended, and Olivia flinched. "No! We were going to untie them before the train came. It was just supposed to be a prank. But then everyone started arguing about who would do it, and time was running out, and I got scared." She buried her face in her hands. "I've never been so ashamed of anything in my life. When you brought them home, when I saw how gentle they were, how scared. Mom would hate me for this." Daniel's heart ached at the mention of Sarah. "Your mother," he said carefully, "believed in second chances, in learning from mistakes. She also believed that when we hurt others, we have a responsibility to make it right." Olivia looked up, her face tear-stained but attentive. Daniel continued, "I'm not going to punish you, at least, not in the usual way. Instead, you and your friends are going to help care for these dogs. You'll feed them, train them, take them to vet appointments. You'll learn what it means to be responsible for the lives you almost took. The others won't agree to that," Olivia said quietly. "They will if they want to avoid having their parents and the police involved," Daniel replied. "This could have ended in tragedy, Olivia. You all need to understand the weight of that." To his surprise, Olivia nodded. "I'll talk to them. And Dad?" She met his eyes for the first time in what felt like months. "Thank you. Not just for saving the dogs, but for giving us a chance to make it right." The next few weeks brought changes to the Walker household that Daniel could never have predicted. True to her word, Olivia convinced her friends to participate in caring for the dogs. At first, they came reluctantly, avoiding eye contact and doing only what was asked of them. But Goldie's forgiving nature and the puppy's boundless enthusiasm began to work their magic. Jason, it turned out, had a natural way with animals. His gruff exterior melted away when Max, the largest puppy, fell asleep in his lap during a training session. Rachel, a quiet girl who had recently joined their group, revealed that she wanted to become a veterinarian. Even Tommy, the most resistant of the group, was eventually won over when Charlie refused to give up trying to make friends with him. Daniel watched these transformations with a mixture of amazement and gratitude. He saw how caring for the dogs gave the teens a sense of purpose and responsibility they'd been lacking. More importantly, he saw his daughter returning, not the child she had been, but someone new and perhaps stronger for having faced her mistakes. Olivia spent hours training Luna, the female puppy, teaching her basic commands and working through behavioral issues with a patience Daniel hadn't seen in her since before Sarah's death. One evening, he found them in the backyard, Olivia praising Luna for successfully completing a trick. "Mom would have loved this," Olivia said as he approached. "Remember how she always said dogs could heal broken hearts?" Daniel sat beside her in the grass, watching as Luna romped with her brothers while Goldie kept a watchful eye on her brood. "She was right about that," he said. "Among other things." Olivia leaned against his shoulder, the first time she'd initiated such contact in over a year. "I miss her so much sometimes it hurts to breathe," she confessed. I think I think that's partly why I've been so angry. At everything. At you. It wasn't fair. Grief isn't fair, Daniel replied, wrapping an arm around her. And we haven't been very good at helping each other through it, have we? No, Olivia agreed. But maybe we can start now. As winter melted into spring, the puppies grew rapidly, their personalities becoming more distinct. Max developed into a gentle giant, while Charlie remained the family clown. Luna, under Olivia's careful training, showed promise as a therapy dog. The teens continued to help care for them, their initial obligation transforming into genuine attachment. The question of adoption arose naturally. The puppies were old enough now to go to new homes, and as much as Daniel had grown to love all of them, he knew keeping 4 large dogs wasn't practical. The solution presented itself during one of their regular training sessions. I've been talking to my parents, Jason said hesitantly one afternoon. About Max. They said I could keep him. If you think that would be okay. Daniel looked at Olivia, who nodded encouragingly. I think Max would like that, she said. He adores you. Rachel's parents agreed to adopt Luna, supporting their daughter's dream of working with animals. Even Tommy's family, after much discussion and a home visit from Daniel, welcomed Charlie into their home. The adoptions were bittersweet, but seeing how the puppies had transformed these young lives made it worthwhile. Goldie remained with the Walkers, becoming the heart of their healing household. She seemed to know instinctively when either of them needed comfort, pressing close during difficult moments, or bringing toys when spirits needed lifting. On the anniversary of Sarah's death, she lay between Daniel and Olivia as they looked through old photo albums, sharing memories instead of retreating into separate grief as they had in previous years. The story of Goldie's rescue spread through the community, though Daniel and Olivia kept the full truth private. The teens had learned their lesson in the most meaningful way possible, through understanding the value of the lives they had nearly destroyed, and through the unconditional love that had given them all a second chance. One warm evening in late spring, Daniel sat on the back porch, watching Olivia play fetch with Goldie. The dog's golden coat gleamed in the setting sun, her joy evident in every bounce and bark. The shadows of their grief would always be there, but they had learned to let light in again. Olivia joined him on the porch steps, Goldie settling at their feet. You know what Mom used to say about guardian angels? She asked, scratching behind Goldie's ears. Daniel smiled, remembering Sarah's firm belief that angels sometimes wore fur. That they come in unexpected forms? Yeah, Olivia said softly. I think she sent us one. Not just to save those puppies, but to save us too. Daniel wrapped an arm around his daughter, feeling the truth of her words. Through an act of cruelty transformed into compassion, they had found their way back to each other. The rescue that began on those train tracks had rippled outward, touching more lives than anyone could have imagined. The weekly puppy reunions became a tradition, with Jason, Rachel, and Tommy bringing Max, Luna, and Charlie to the Walkers' backyard for playdates. Goldie's joy at seeing her children was matched only by the pride Daniel felt watching the teens who had once made such a terrible mistake now showing such responsibility and care for their 4-legged family members. Rachel's work with Luna led to a volunteer position at the local animal shelter, where she helped socialize rescued dogs. Jason discovered that Max's calm presence helped him manage his anger issues, and he started bringing his dog to visit elderly residents at the nursing home where his grandmother lived. Tommy, once the most troubled of the group, found purpose in training Charlie to compete in local agility competitions. The transformation in the teens didn't go unnoticed at school. Other students began asking about their dogs, and soon the group started a club focused on animal welfare. With Daniel's guidance, they organized fundraisers for the shelter and educational programs about responsible pet ownership. The dark secret that had brought them together evolved into a mission to prevent other animals from suffering. Olivia particularly threw herself into these efforts, channeling her mother's compassionate spirit. She started a blog documenting their journey with Goldie and the puppies, careful to protect the original story but honest about the lessons learned about responsibility and redemption. Her writing caught the attention of a local newspaper, which ran a feature about their animal welfare initiatives. One evening, as summer approached, Daniel found Olivia sitting in Sarah's old reading nook, Goldie's head in her lap. A familiar leather-bound journal lay open beside her. "I found Mom's diary," she said quietly. "Listen to this entry from when I was little. Watched Olivia today with a hurt sparrow she found. Such gentleness in those small hands. Such concern for a tiny life. I pray she never loses that softness of heart." Daniel sat beside them, his throat tight. "She didn't lose it," he said. "She just needed to find it again." Olivia closed the journal carefully. When we did that horrible thing to Goldie and the puppies, I wasn't thinking about them as living beings. They were just a problem to solve. But now," she looked down at Goldie's trusting face, "now I understand what Mom meant about every life being precious." The lessons learned that autumn continued to shape their lives. Daniel saw it in the way Olivia approached challenges with newfound maturity, in the way she and her friends had grown from thoughtless teens into compassionate young adults. He saw it in himself too, how saving those dogs had awakened something he thought had died with Sarah, the capacity to open his heart to new love and joy. Goldie remained their constant companion, her presence a daily reminder of both how far they'd come and the importance of kindness. She grew gray around the muzzle as the years passed, but her spirit stayed young, especially during visits with her puppies. Each reunion was a celebration of second chances and the enduring bonds of family, both blood and chosen. On Goldie's 5th adoption anniversary, they held a special gathering in the backyard. Max, Luna, and Charlie, now magnificent adult dogs, romped with their mother while their human families shared stories and laughter. Daniel watched Olivia move among their guests, confident and caring, so like her mother it made his heart ache with pride rather than pain. Later, as the party wound down, Olivia joined him on the porch swing. Goldie lay at their feet, her children sprawled nearby in the evening warmth. "You know," Olivia said thoughtfully, "that night on the tracks, it could have gone so differently. One moment of cruelty could have ended so many lives. Instead, it saved them," Daniel finished. "Not just the dogs, but all of us." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded Daniel of Goldie's coat. The distant whistle of a train floated on the breeze, once a sound of tragedy narrowly averted, now a reminder of the night their healing began. Sarah's picture smiled down at them from its place of honor on the wall, and Daniel could almost hear her voice. "Love finds a way. It always finds a way." Looking at his daughter, at their extended family of humans and dogs gathered in the yard, at the golden retriever who had helped bridge the chasm of grief between them, Daniel knew Sarah had been right. Sometimes the greatest acts of love grow from moments of darkness. Sometimes angels wear fur and teach their lessons with paws and wagging tails. And sometimes, the path to redemption starts with a desperate rescue on train tracks, leading to places of healing no one could have imagined. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Daniel thought about all the turns life had taken to bring them to this moment. The pain of loss that had nearly broken them. The mistake that could have ended in tragedy but instead opened a door to healing. The countless small moments of grace that had followed, piecing their broken family back together in new and beautiful ways. Goldie raised her head, looking at them with eyes full of wisdom and love, and Daniel was struck again by how this dog, this survivor who had every reason to fear humans, had instead shown them the way to forgiveness and renewal. In saving her life that night, he had saved so much more: his relationship with his daughter, the futures of 4 troubled teens, and perhaps most importantly, his own capacity to hope. The evening ended as it had begun, with family, redefined and expanded, but stronger for the trials they had faced together. As their guests departed, each with their own piece of the miracle that had started on those tracks, Daniel knew that Sarah would have been proud of the healing their family had found, and the love that had grown from the ashes of loss and regret. Some said it was just a story about a dog rescue, but Daniel knew better. It was a testament to the transformative power of compassion, a reminder that even our darkest moments can lead to light, and proof that love, in all its forms, has the power to save us all.